with a drive that's big enough to fit everything, so I can use this as a test bed for everything I've got on my main computer to see what works properly in High Sierra. And the main thing I was aware of is that as far as the majority of the user interface goes, not a lot has changed. There are a few things I noticed in passing. Say, for example, there's a new lock... Oh, no, waiting on.
To do your screen.
Yep, I have to adjust the overscan. Sorry, I didn't notice that. Let's just fix that. Underscan. Let's just take that down to about... That look about right?
Yeah.
Right. In the Apple menu, there is a new item hiding down there called Lock Screen, which does the same thing as the Magic Keyboard shortcut, which immediately turns the screen black, which I already knew. So it's a different keyboard shortcut for it and a command in the menu. So the idea is as soon as you do that, it immediately goes to the password screen or something like that. So you can sort of force having to log in again if you're going to walk away from your computer.
You set up the Apple Watch.
Yeah. Now, I've still got all my stuff installed, there's extra things in system preferences down the bottom here which aren't normally part of the operating system, so that's all stuff I've added. But for the most part, the system preferences are all pretty similar. They've done some rearrangements and there's nothing really which leaps out at you as being different. It all looks pretty much the same. So overall, if you're already used to what Sierra looks like, High Sierra, there's no complications. It's not like Yosemite where they changed the added transparency and changed the fonts and things like that. It's all the same as it was before for the most part. I'll just hide that for the moment, that's not relevant. Now, I have been referring to, I don't have it on this computer, of course, bother. I'll need to grab off my other computer. Why is this not on the Wi-Fi? Not having any luck talking to anything. Can I see my other computer? Oh, that's close enough. They're out of date, but they're close enough to be useful. I wanted to mention this series of books which are quite good. It's a series called Take Control. Used to be published by Tidbits and is now published by an independent company who are associated with Tidbits. But these happen to be the early access versions, but for each major version of the operating system, I've also got the missing manual one there. They've done take control of upgrading to this version and take control of using it, basically. And it gives you kind of a quite good guideline on new features and existing features and things. And they're quite good because they cover a range of versions. So if you're jumping many versions at once, it's actually got enough in the take control of using version of the book to understand pretty much all the feature set. The missing manual one's also very good. If you want to refer to a book, I haven't actually bothered to buy the Sierra or High Sierra version of that book. The High Sierra one's probably not out yet. That's one advantage of these new ones is they were already out before the operating system was, and they had updated it on the release day with the details in the final version, so they're very quick at updating them. But if I refer to that one, it's available as once you buy the book, it's a digital rights management free, so you can copy and do whatever you like with it. Though of course you shouldn't be giving it to other people because they're not very expensive. But they're available as an EPUB and a PDF and a Mobi file, so you can read them on a Kindle, on a computer as a PDF, or on a computer or iOS device as an iBooks using an EPUB. So this happens to be iBooks, but that's just because I like the interface. So this book covers, just to give you an idea, it's in the current layout it's 180 pages long. It's got, if I look for major sections here, read me first, what's new in High Sierra, discovering little things, say hello to Siri, sort of major feature blocks like Spotlight, how to use tabs and applications, adjusting the view with things like spaces and split view, notification center, Safari settings, notes, whole section on notes, handoff and using that sort of feature set to move stuff back and forth between your devices, AirDrop, iCloud Drive, storage management, iCloud family sharing is a sort of a bit improved feature, dealing with multiple user accounts. So it's more sort of system level stuff. It doesn't really go into the applications, doesn't go into things like photos, mail, those sorts of things. They've actually got separate books on each of those, but those ones haven't been updated to cover the new features, so they're sort of more generic. So that wasn't particularly helpful for me to find what's new in Mail, for example. Am I running Mail? So I've set up Mail. It's probably going to have to download vast amounts of stuff if it had internet access, but it probably doesn't. It's hard to tell. It looks like it's done some, but not. Yeah, so it's currently offline. No, it's getting stuff. So it's downloading. I don't know what's going on with this indicator here. It's currently saying it's not connected, but it is.
Maybe that's a bug.
Could be, but it said earlier that something else is using your IP address, and I think that's because this computer is a clone of that one, and the network's confused by the fact that they've been cloned or something like that. So
Throwing his hands up.
if I close that one, it might be happier. So I got that out of the way. Yep. Yeah. So there's now. Let me see if I can find something. If I find there was a new feature that I haven't actually seen detailed yet. The search feature in Mail is apparently improved, but I can't see anything obvious there. It looks similar to me. So if I find people subjects, no, that looks similar. No, I haven't actually been able to spot the obvious difference there. One other feature I'm aware of that's new is in the Photos application. If you were in the habit of using, that's not actually the feature I want, advanced editing tools, there we go. It doesn't mention it there, but one of the related features is if you were in the habit with iPhoto of using an external, much more powerful photo editing program to edit photos in your iPhoto library, that feature's come back again in Photos with High Sierra. So you can actually link supported applications into your Photos library. They can directly edit the photo in the other application and then save it back into your Photos library. I haven't tried it yet, and this may possibly not Photoshop because you need to have the right version of Photoshop. It has to be a new enough version to support this feature because it has to be a correctly authenticated application that's allowed to do this. So if I pick, yeah, why is it doing that? It doesn't like me. No, I don't know what it is. The other one wasn't complaining. So if I go in there and go edit, what features does that give me? So there's heaps and heaps of editing tools in there. That's all the built-in stuff. Yeah, I know. Go away. I'll take it off their network. That will simplify that problem because it just keeps complaining at me. So what I'm curious about is how do you link it? Oh, there we go. So Graphic Converter 10 is one of the applications that supports this feature. So is Acorn. But I've also got Pixelmator and Affinity Photo installed, and it appears they don't support it yet. Yeah, but that's go to the App Store to find more applications that support this feature. So edit in Acorn or edit with Graphic Converter 10. I think Acorn's more likely to be up to date enough, so let's just do that. Yeah. That's all right, because Acorn is the one that I've actually bought. Yeah, that's all right. It won't be on the internet, so it's not going to get anything. So I should be able to come in here if I can work out how to operate this particular program, which I haven't used much, and arbitrarily draw a big black rectangle across something. There we go. That's a nice, easy edit. And I don't care about what's in this. Yes, I do, because it's going to sync to iCloud. Interesting question is whether I can undo it again afterwards. If I go save. That's now, other way, it puts it back in Photos with an option to whether or not to save changes. So if I tell it to save changes, it's now got the big black dot, and then is there revert to original? Yes, good, there we go. So yes, that works because as an extra confirmation step. So just as a very simple example, that shows that you can, as long as you have a compatible application, you can, without having to export and re-import, which was how you had to do it in previous versions of Photos, you can actually edit a photo in another application if you don't like the tools that are built in. Switcher cast should have. Yep, running now. Except I'm not on the network. I can't get on the network. I've got a problem with the IP address. I don't know what it is. So we won't have that. Every time I try and join the network, it complains that something else is using my IP address, and I don't know why. hasn't even shown the right network yet. We'll try again and see if it's happy this time. Yep, so that's the sort of little feature I've gone and had a quick hunt around to see if I can find things. There is a section in Finder's help menu, see what's new in Mac OS, which is potentially helpful if you just run a new version and you want to, except that's going to want to, yes. Let's try it again and see if it's going to work. If not, I'll go to the iPhone. Settings, because that's. I don't know what it is. There's something else which is somehow the network. No, it's the other computer. It's not my other computer because it's asleep. It's the network is confused by something. So I'll just try. Right, and it won't help unfortunately with this because I'll be on the wrong network, but at least gives me internet access. Personal hotspot on. There we go. Now I can plug this in, not on that side of this computer. I have to remember that the USB ports have moved. And that will probably want me to trust the computer. Oh, now it works. No, it didn't. Turn Wi-Fi off. There we go. I've got the personal hotspot connection, so I should be on the internet through. Yep, there we go. So now it'll work. It's having a think about it. It's downloading something. Don't need Acorn running anymore. Don't need Photos running anymore. Still thinks I'm not on the internet. No, because I know the problem is I haven't got a network connection. So let me go into System Preferences and just check what my network's doing.
This room, do they ever give you the Wi-Fi?
Yeah, that's what we've got the Wi-Fi passcode.
We have got it, but for some unknown reason, because David's behind this other computer, it's giving a false reading.
It's claiming that something else on the network has got the same address as the network has given my computer. So I don't know what the problem is there, but
no, there's only certain people who've got it, Leslie.
No, it's still not working. Bastard thing. Why are you not giving me iPhone personal hotspot? Should be working. It's doing something. Mail is downloading vast amounts of stuff. Let's just stop Mail from downloading vast amounts of stuff. Still trying to catch up with all the email that this computer hasn't seen yet. No, I know what the problem is. That particular error message was what we were looking at. See what's new in Mac OS. That's better. Now it's working. Okay, so this is Apple's built-in help page. So effects to live photos. This actually gives you a nice little video tour as well, which is quite nice. So you can have a look at each of these effects, add effects to live photos, edit, also editing features and photos, organising. Top right to find just the photos you want. Show only photos that are edited, or only videos, or only favourites, or if things by keyword. That looks like a better organisational tool than there was before. Say goodbye to autoplay. Oh yeah, that's one which I haven't actually used in anger yet. Autoplay videos. I've already managed to nobble most autoplay videos in the previous version, so I don't know if I'd actually notice it. But, videos on websites that insist on playing at you as soon as you get there are one of the most annoying features I've encountered. So that's gone in Safari, hopefully, with the new version. They've also improved the anti-tracking features built into Safari to hopefully prevent other websites from working out where you've been while you're not on that website. iCloud Drive. You can share files in iCloud Drive with other people, not just with your own other devices. So that's a collaboration tool. So as long as they're all running the latest operating system, of course, they've all got to be on new enough versions. Pinned notes. If you pin a note, it stays at the top of the list. So that one will always stay there even if you scroll down. They've also got a table creation feature in Notes. So if you want to create little tables of information, Notes has more functionality than it had before. Flight info. Whether this works in New Zealand, let's say Air New Zealand flight NZ519 arbitrarily. I don't know whether that's actually a valid. No. No, that's just finding emails. Because I've got things in my email which happen to include those words because I've got previous things. No, I suspect that's an American-only feature at this point. So it's able to actually do spotlight results to find flights if it's got the data available to it. Live photos during a FaceTime call. So if you're on a FaceTime call on your computer, you can take a live photo of the other person. They can disable the feature if they don't want you to have the ability to do that.
I've already done that. My father and me are both running iOS 11, and the last Skype call I did, or the last FaceTime call I did, I took a live photo of him. And he actually saw it come through. It's like, oh, Shane's taking a live photo of George.
Yep. Under FaceTime preferences, I suspect there is a allow live photos to be captured during video calls. So you can turn that feature off. It's on by default. If you don't want other people to be able to take live photos of you while you're on a FaceTime call with them. Mail and full screen new messages automatically open in split view. That's nice. Let's see if I can demonstrate that. Mail. So if I go into full screen mode, first of all, and go new, if it'll let me, still thinking about something here. Yeah, there we go. So you automatically, if you happen to like using full screen mode, it gives you the new message in a full screen, and if you close it, it just goes away again. So that's quite cute. Again, I don't want mail running because it's doing lots of downloads. Oh, now that's actually that one there. Find just the email you need is a feature I was trying to do. Searching in your mail is fast and easy with top hits. Now, it might be that I haven't done enough yet. Ah, there. Okay. Let's try that again. So if I find Denton, so I don't see top hits showing up anywhere. Supposedly something appearing on the left-hand side, but it might be that it has to index it all before it can get to that point, and it may not have done it yet. Okay, but there's apparently a top hits feature which gives you a easy-to-read list of email messages that most closely match the criteria of what you're searching for, rather than it giving you a sort of a choice down the pop-up menu. So I couldn't see that exactly. Family sharing. A new feature they've got is shared storage. Now, you may be aware that you can pay for iCloud storage to give you more than the default 5 gigabytes. So I'm currently paying to get 200 gigabytes so I can fit my entire photo library in iCloud. If you use iCloud family sharing, or whichever feature it's under, you can actually now share your iCloud storage plan between your family as well. So for example, if you have 3 people in the family, each of whom need more than 5 gigabytes, you could pay for a whole family 50 gigabyte account and all 3 of you use the same one, as long as you turn on the family sharing feature. So this is applicable in cases where you've got more than one Apple ID for the people in the same family. If you've got multiple people using different devices sharing a single Apple ID, that's not going to make any difference. It's where you've got, say, mother and father and kids sharing, each of whom got their own Apple ID, and one of them has been set up as the coordinator for the whole family, and everybody's purchases goes through that person, and also everybody's iCloud account can be shared as well now, storage at least. So it's helpful, means you're more likely to get bigger ones and just pay one fee for the entire family. Sorry? What's that one? Start exploring, yeah, so take a tour to learn about. Okay, so that's basically the ones that they're mentioning. As you can see, for the most part, it looks pretty similar. There's some bits under the hood There's nothing really to get excited about in terms of feature set for the operating system. Most of the changes are all underneath the visible layer. So the main one, of course, being the file system, the new file system. If I find devices, that one there, and I do a get info on it, you'll see that this particular volume says format APFS encrypted. So because this machine has a solid state drive, it got converted to the new file system automatically as part of the upgrade to the operating system. I didn't even notice that happening. It just sort of happened as part of the install, so it isn't a huge time-consuming thing. The only real concern with the new file system is that some applications are not happy with it, and effectively what you get is two layers of compatibility problems. There's some applications that aren't happy with the operating system in its entirety, and other ones that are okay as long as you're using the old file system but then don't like the new file system in subtle ways or major ways. So one, for example, that has come up recently is the very latest version of VMware Fusion, version 10. Some people are complaining that if you try and create a new virtual machine for Windows 10 and your driver's using APFS, it doesn't work. It does if it's HFS+. So there's that sort of subtle problem. It works fine if you're using an existing one, it's only creating a new one that causes a problem. So there's weirdo problems like that coming up. Then you get applications that simply aren't compatible properly anymore. That was the right one. Where's it gone? I'm looking for 11 there. FileMaker Pro 11, which is the one that the club is using for its membership database. If I try and do FileMaker Pro Advanced Preferences and go OK, where did it go? It's gone. It's quit. So random quits and crashes from old versions of FileMaker Pro. So anybody who's running version 13 or earlier, it turns out, it does not work reliably on High Sierra. It just crashes at strange places. So don't expect old versions of FileMaker to be usable. Version 14 and 15 and 16, I've got all of them, seem to be all right. 15 and 16 are officially supporting it. 14 seems to be new enough that whatever the problem was in earlier versions had already been fixed. So that sort of issue. Again, the pattern is older applications tend to be incompatible with much newer operating systems. Version 11 was updated more than 5 years ago. They've done 5 major versions since then, about once a year. So, and 13 is only 3 years old. So if you have a 3-year-old-ish operating system, application, sorry, and it hasn't been getting updates, or you have chosen not to upgrade to a new major version, it's more increasingly likely it's going to have problems. Things like virtual machine software, you tend to need the latest version anyway. If you're running VMware Fusion, version 8 is not compatible with High Sierra properly. Version 10 is, but it's a paid upgrade. I believe the same applies to Parallels Desktop. If you wanted to upgrade, you'd need to get the new version of Parallels Desktop. So there's that sort of thing is common. Other old things tend to be a bit flaky as well. Now, I've mentioned in my article, I think, there was the Mac Rumors thread on High Sierra Go No Go thread. I can't remember the name of it. I've got a link in the. Does not work, is it? Yep. So Mac Rumors forum, they set up a wiki thread where people had listed things that they've tested and things that they haven't tested. So this is a convenient list of things that other people think seem to work okay or don't. So knowing these sort of resources are quite handy just to give you a general idea, but I do recommend if you're going to try running High Sierra in the early days, it's a very good idea. It's essential, in fact, that you have a full backup of your computer before you attempt to install it, but I do actually recommend the process of cloning your computer, installing the new operating system on the clone and running it from there to try it, rather than risking upgrading your main computer. Because of the file system conversion, in some cases, you may end up in a situation where you have to wipe your computer and restore it, because you can't convert back to the old file system again, and the new one doesn't work on the old operating system. So I recommend upgrading a test copy of your system rather than the actual system if you want to try it at this stage. But there's a huge long list here of things which people think works. There's a shorter list of things that don't work.
AutoCAD doesn't.
AutoCAD version 2017 doesn't work on APFS.
Does 15?
Don't know. The older versions, probably nobody's tested them. So this one was interesting. Adobe Illustrator, if you try and use that on APFS, you get problems. It applies to the very, very latest version of Illustrator. They've just fixed this, I think, in the latest updates of Illustrator Creative Cloud, and apparently applies to every single earlier version. So in effect, if you're running Adobe Creative Suite 6 or earlier, at least 2 components of it are known to be incompatible with High Sierra, which is, if you're running the latest new file system, which is Illustrator and InDesign. Now, InDesign isn't mentioned there anymore because it's now been fixed, but it does apply still to older versions. Photoshop has a problem with its save dialog box in CS4, but nobody's mentioned later versions, so Photoshop seems to be better off than the other components. Some games, including Civilization, have all sorts of problems. They've got to update the engine before they're ready. Obviously, disk utilities are a major issue because they've got to support the new file system to be useful. So they're all written to directly access the disk and read the raw information and decipher it. They can't understand the new file system until they're ready to do so, which requires Apple to actually supply them enough technical details. So things like Disk Warrior, TechTool Pro, and those sorts of utilities simply will not be ready to use on the new operating system. Apart from that, which basically means you lose some safety net if you like using those sorts of utilities for repairing issues or investigating issues on the drive.
You mentioned before that you've got to do a full backup.
Yeah, it's always a good idea to. I always do that as a rule of an explicit rule. In fact, I do 2. I make sure I have a Time Machine backup and I have another backup of my computer before I install a major one.
Because normal backups aren't.
A Time Machine backup is usually sufficient, unless you've excluded things from Time Machine. I prefer to do 2 separate backups on 2 different drives. So there's a complete copy on one drive and a complete copy on another drive.
Backup
Of everything. 2 Time Machine backups would be sufficient. I prefer, just out of principle, to have a clone for one of them, because the clone is bootable. Time Machine backup is not bootable. So if you need to run the old operating system temporarily, having a clone is better because you can use that to boot the computer in an emergency and run off it directly. So
I'm not sure whether we back up everything or not.
yeah, well, normally you would unless you deliberately excluded something. If I go and have a look in Time Machine on here, if it's set up, as this is the wrong computer, under Options, yep, I've explicitly excluded a whole bunch of folders from my Time Machine backups because they're all got big things that I didn't want backed up. So I rely on clones to make sure I've got copies of all those things less frequently than I do Time Machine backups.
So you do a full backup.
I do, so I actually have multiple full backups on external clones, and I usually do 2 of those if I'm doing a major operating system upgrade. In this case, I bypassed the problem by doing a test install on another machine, so this is now a clone of my main machine. So I'm able to test on here without touching my main computer, but when time comes to upgrade that one, it's going to get Time Machine backed up twice, cloned at least 3 times, and one of those is going to get put away and never touched again. So I'm paranoid. I want to make sure I keep the old system as long as possible. I've actually got a complete copy of this machine when it was running 10.9, 10.10, 10.11 and 10.12, just so I can go back and use them for testing purposes again later. Most people don't need to worry about that if you just have a clone or preferably 2 as a safety precaution, because the issue is if you discover something as a showstopper and you have to go back to the old system, you may have to wipe your computer in the process. If you do that, and you've only got 1 backup, you are now reliant on the reliability of that 1 drive. If you have 2 backups, you've got 2 chances to restore everything, not just 1. So that's why I recommend double backups if you're on 2 separate drives, if you're doing an OS upgrade. Just so that if something goes seriously wrong, you've always got 2 other copies that you can safely wipe the machine. The other problem is sometimes a drive, particularly with hard drives, the drive in your computer might be getting towards the end of its lifetime, and doing something major like installing an operating system may push it over the edge and it starts dying on you while you're in the middle of upgrading the operating system. So having an extra copy of everything first is always a good idea. But as I said, even if it's just 2 different drives both doing Time Machine backups, that's sufficient usually. I just, out of principle, prefer one of them to be a clone and the other one can be a Time Machine backup.
Does that list that you mentioned
Bento is definitely gone. It's already gone in Sierra. It doesn't work reliably. You've managed to get lucky somehow.
I'm still using that database in El Capitan.
Yeah, but I don't know how, because it stopped working for me in Yosemite or El Capitan. It's been,
You stopped a long time.
yeah, because it kept crashing on me. It was just like totally unreliable. So I don't know how you've managed to avoid that, because I wasn't doing anything complicated with it. So, but Bento is definitely never going to be supported. So it's nobody's bothered testing it because everybody's assumed it's already dead. So yep, just don't rely on it.
If you were to buy a new Mac
Yep.
now, it would run High Sierra.
It will come. It might come with High Sierra by now. There have been a couple of people I've been helping. One, I think, who's bought a new Mac about 2 weeks after High Sierra was released. They bought it as a retail computer from Noel Leeming. They didn't have the particular model in stock, so they had to send one down from Palmerston North, and it happened to still have Sierra on it. So the likelihood is, if you buy a new Mac now and it was already in stock as of 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, it may still have Sierra installed, and you won't need to worry about High Sierra. But any newly introduced models, of which there aren't any yet, or any new stock supplied by Apple, or any bought directly from Apple, will probably already have High Sierra installed. Okay. Now the other point is that if you were thinking about trying High Sierra, today is not a good day to do it, because tomorrow it's likely that Apple will release 10.13.1. There's already been a supplementary update for 10.13 to fix a few early bugs. 10.13.1 is, and similarly iOS 10, 11.1 and all the other corresponding versions, they're all on the verge of being released. So Apple's been doing more than one update a week for the last 2 weeks, so they've been randomly timed. So it's like they're just fixing the last few bugs to get to the point where they're going to release it. So it'll either be tomorrow or a week from tomorrow, I reckon. So after that point, there'll be a new set of, okay, I might find, for example, that FileMaker Pro 11 starts working again because Apple's fixed whatever the problem was that's making it crash. So at the moment, it's the first version it's crashing on. I found a similar problem last year with Sierra. Many of my old applications behaved extremely badly in 10.12.0 and 10.12.1. I had a really weird problem if I upgraded from 10.12.1 0 to 2, because then some things stopped working, but it depended which way you got there. And by 10.12.3, everything was working fine again, because Apple had fixed where the problems were. So early days, the likelihood of older things breaking is more than later days. They may fix things. We just don't know until we get to the later days, of course. So, did somebody have a question there?
Hopefully they'll fix the Wi-Fi problem.
Oh yes, that's one thing I was going to mention. There's a known, I mentioned in my article, there is a known security issue affecting everything which has Wi-Fi. All client devices on every platform, on every operating system, on every type of device has a now discovered, some subset of 10 new bugs have been found, depending on the device, which basically means that there is no secure mode that can be used on Wi-Fi networks which doesn't expose the data in some way. So previously you could run a Wi-Fi network with no security at all, or with what was originally called WEP, which turned out to be horribly insecure and is easily broken, but there was a better one called WPA, or Wireless Protected Access. All of the replacement options default to secure connections, so they're all encrypted talking to the servers. That means that the passwords are not exposed. So it's that sort of level of problem. And some of the classes of problems potentially allow data to be injected and sent to your device as well. So there's again, it's likely that unencrypted connections are going to be a risk, but encrypted ones should be okay even if you've got the bug. In the case of iOS devices, it's very likely that only iOS 11.1 will get the fix, which means if you haven't upgraded to iOS 11 because you're not ready to for some reason, you will still be vulnerable. But as I said, iOS devices are less vulnerable than most others. If you have an older model that's not able to upgrade to iOS 11, say an iPhone 5, Apple might decide to release a security update for those, which again they've done occasionally in the past, just to fix this problem, because those devices will not get any further updates. And that's, of course, on top of the other now 12, I think, different Wi-Fi security problems which attack devices directly rather than the data that's going to and from them, which have been fixed at various points recently, which I'm still trying to get my head around.
But there isn't any reason for not upgrading to iOS 11, is there?
Not really, no. There's some, like I'm running it on an iPhone 6, which is the second oldest generation of supported models. It's been mostly fine. Apple's already done 3 minor updates to fix problems with it. As I said, iOS 11.1 is coming out, which may include some feature tweaks and things like they've left some features out of the initial release that they were promising, and some of them might show up in 11.1. It'll include more bug fixes, it'll include the Wi-Fi security fix. One thing I have found is that at times my phone seems to be chewing through the battery for no obvious reason, and gets hot in the process, so it's obviously using a lot of power. It's not just that the battery is wearing out. And occasionally I've had it chewing through cellular data for no obvious reason as well. And I think I've worked out one of the reasons for that. There's a new feature in iOS 11. If you're on a bad Wi-Fi network, it actually tries using the cellular network as a support for the Wi-Fi network to fetch some data. So I didn't realise that I had such a bad Wi-Fi signal in my bedroom, and I'm in the habit of using my iPhone from the bedroom in the mornings to read all the websites I'm trying to catch up on. So it was actually using cellular data for quite a lot of that, and I wasn't expecting that. So you can turn it off. There's a setting for it, yeah. Buried somewhere under mobile data or cellular data, whichever it's called on your phone. Wi-Fi, no, is it Wi-Fi Assist? No, that's the other way around, I think. I can't remember. I had to go and find it again, but I know there's a setting for it. I managed to find it. So apart from those, and the battery thing has been intermittent, so it's not like it's no longer usable or anything like that. At times, and particularly after you've upgraded to a new version, it goes through and does a re-index, so it slows the device down and it's chewing through a lot of power, just updating all of its indexes. You expect that. So as long as you ignore that detail, after a day or two it should settle down again. I have occasionally had other things which might be a misbehaving app for all I know. I can't really tell because I haven't been able to pinpoint it. But at times I've been looking at the screen on my phone and I've seen the battery level indicator counting down, 64, 63, 62, it's going that sort of speed. It's really chewing through the battery. Now this battery is 3 years old, so part of that might be, this part of the battery is not working. Let's just keep counting until we find one that does. So I can't be sure about that, but that's a possibility. Yeah, but I mean, other than that, there's the obvious problem with 32-bit applications. If you've got already running iOS 10.3, you can check, as I've mentioned at least 2 or 3 times in the magazine, to see which apps you've got won't work in iOS 11. And as long as you aren't using any of those, then other than that, it's pretty much okay already as far as I can tell. I've had occasional user interface niggles. For example, Safari about 2 or 3 times now has gone to a state where if I try and tap the location bar to type an address, it just flashes at me and won't let me type anything. I force quit Safari, run it again, and it works fine. So easily worked around minor problems like that I don't care about. As long as you're aware of how to do certain things like force quit, so this might be enough to throw some people. Yep.
It is Wi-Fi system.
Is it? 'Cause it's not that one, because that was already there.
Automatically use mobile data when Wi-Fi connectivity is poor.
Yeah, but it was a new feature in 11 that was already there previously, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, I know.
There's another one.
Yeah,
I may have the
Andrew.
details slightly wrong for that. I can't quite remember what it is now, but there was something which started happening, or maybe it was just that my Wi-Fi network was suddenly bad and I didn't realise that feature. It might well was. I turned it off previously and it may have turned it back on again without telling me. That some people have complained about that. Some settings have been reset to defaults when you upgrade to the new operating system. That would explain it. Yeah. So it's a good idea after you upgrade to go through your settings and see if they are what you expected them to be. If they're not, like auto-installing app updates, for example, is one I turned off. Use cellular data for app downloads is one I turned off. That sort of thing.
What about on the laptop with High Sierra? Does that have any defaults?
Sometimes I believe so. It's worth checking things like under App Store, have you got your settings for automatic downloads the way you expect them to be? So I leave mine set like that because you have to have the automatically check for updates on in order to be able to turn on the bottom one, which is install system data files and security updates. And the bottom one is the very important one because that's the one that gets the daily quiet updates from Apple for known malicious software that then blocks from running if it finds out about it, and updated rules for gatekeeper and things like that. So having at least those two on is good. The three above that, download newly available updates in the background. I'm often using my computer on my cell phone. I don't want it to do that while I'm on my cell phone, so I turn that off. And because I turned that off, I can't do the other two. But I also, if I did have that one turned on, I wouldn't have those two turned on anyway, because I don't like apps being updated without me knowing about it. So I prefer to, even if it's downloading them, I prefer to actually control when it actually installs it.
You'll still see notifications, so you still know.
Yes, well, automatically check for updates means that the notifications still pop up. App Store tells me there's updates available, and I'll get if I look in, I can always go and look at App Store and see what's available, and then go and download it when I'm ready, which is the idea. So with those settings, yeah. So it's worth just going through and checking to see if the preferences make sense, and it's just a good idea to familiarise yourself with them again occasionally, even if nothing's changed. So, oh, what does that do? And it's worth noting that. There is a question mark button in the corner of settings, and that will take you to the help page that's relevant to that. So there's some useful little tips in there. Okay, I think I better stop there because we've hit 10 o'clock.
Thank you, David.
Yep.
Dave's getting confused.
Yeah. So it's more of this is what's coming. Hopefully it'll get better and better.